Hello, everybody. Welcome to Your Morning Drive. I am Logan Lewis. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. We're recording today's episode from 216 Co-working, which is located in downtown Cartersville. 216 offers private offices, team suites, meeting rooms, everything in between, built for professionals, remote workers, and growing teams. With 24/7 access, high-speed internet, furnished office spaces, and a polished business-ready environment, it's a strong option for anyone working across Bartow County and beyond. Whether you need a dedicated office or a meeting room or a flexible workspace, 216 has you covered. To learn more, visit their website, book a tour, and join me here at 216 Co-working. Before we dive in, of course, wherever you're listening or watching right now, whether it's Apple or Spotify, YouTube, anywhere in between, hit subscribe, hit follow so that when new episodes come out, they go straight to your phone and you won't miss a beat. We're putting out some absolute heaters, y'all, this year. And so I would hate for you to miss a great conversation like the one we're going to have today. And of course, follow along on social media. Anywhere you follow Riley Green or Sydney Sweeney, follow me too. Your Morning Drive on all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, some other ones I'm forgetting. Guys, my guest today is a lifelong Bartow County resident with deep roots in service, leadership, and community impact. Coming from a family legacy that includes former Georgia Governor Joe Frank Harris, my guest has carried that same commitment forward through his own career in business development, education, advocacy, and public service. He currently serves as the state representative for District 15 while also working as business development manager for Parish Construction Group. With a background that spans over a decade in workforce and technical educational leadership, along with active involvement in numerous local organizations, he brings a well-rounded perspective on growth, leadership, and serving others. Please welcome my new friend, Matthew Gambill.
Well, Logan, it's good to be with you this morning. And thank you for the opportunity to sit down and visit for a little while.
Yeah, I'm excited. Super cool. People have mentioned your name, and I'll be honest with you, Matthew. Matthew.
I go by both. I answer to both. I've been called worse, so it's not going to bother me. But yeah, Matthew is what I generally tell people.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Several of our mutual friends have told me or mentioned your name in passing, and have you talked to Matthew Gambill yet? Have you talked to Matthew Gambill? And no offense, but for the longest time I was like, who's Matthew Gambill? But that's only because, man, I still consider myself a Cartersville newbie. I've only lived in Georgia for probably about 12 years. I moved around the country a lot growing up, so I haven't. I don't know all of the lore behind Georgia and Bartow County.
Yeah.
So when you sent me over your bio and I saw that family legacy with Joe Frank Harris, I was like, the guy the road is named after.
Yeah.
So see, that just shows you how little I know. But I'm just extremely lucky to have you here. This is really cool. I mean, you're important.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm blessed to be able to serve in the role that I'm in, and so I'm, like I said, just glad to be able to talk to you a little bit this morning and share a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So before we get into what you're doing now and what you do for Georgia and Parish Construction Group, let's go back. Let's take it way back, Matthew. Where are you from originally? Talk as much or as little about parents, siblings. Were you cool in high school? All of those things. Let's get the little Matthew Gambill origin story.
Well, I'll start with something you said a minute ago about not being from Cartersville and still being new. I'll tell you a funny story. My grandfather, Frank Harris, so people get confused all the time. Joe Frank Harris is my uncle. He's my mom's brother. And his father and my grandfather was a man named Frank Harris. And my grandfather and his family moved to Cartersville in the 1920s. They were from Gilmer County. But he was about 11 years old when he moved here, and he lived here until he died in 1999 at the age of 87. And the funny thing I'm trying to relay to you is that even to the end of my grandfather's life, he still did not consider himself to be born from Cartersville, and that he was still working to try to, acclimate to Cartersville, which I thought was hilarious because he spent all of his life here in essence. But yeah, my mom and dad, Bill and Glenda Gambill, and mom grew up here. Of course, that's the connection to Cartersville. And then I mentioned my grandfather and uncle and all. We had another uncle as well. But anyway, my father's from Columbus, Georgia. They met in college, and they lived in Florida for a little while, and then moved back to Cartersville in the early '70s when my dad, his work brought him to Atlanta, and they settled in Cartersville. And so I've been here my whole life, and we are so fortunate that I think we've got the best of all worlds in Cartersville. We're on a highway. We can be to Atlanta in 45 minutes without traffic, or maybe an hour and a half with traffic, depends on when you leave. You can be to Chattanooga quickly, but you can also be far enough out that you're not in what I would call big city. And we've got the lake, we've got the mountains, we've got the museums, we've got the manufacturing, we've got good schools, we've got just an amazing community. And so it doesn't mean that we don't have problems, but I tell people this all the time. This is a wonderful place to represent, and I'm proud of the place that we all get to share and be a part of.
Yeah, I'm constantly reminded how cool Cartersville is, or Bartow County in general, but really Cartersville, because I just moved here 3.5 years ago for the sake of affordability.
Yeah.
We were living with my parents after we got married for a year, because they told us, live with us for a year while you save up to buy a house, because we were living in downtown Kennesaw, and I love Kennesaw, but Kennesaw is still small, but it's so big, though, at the same time, that it doesn't have the small town feel that Cartersville has.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we moved out here because we just wanted to be able to afford a home, and for a first-time home buyer. And that's not, it's possible in Kennesaw, but it's just not as affordable.
Right.
And, with living in an apartment in downtown Kennesaw, they wanted our rent. We got in at a good cost because the apartment complex was new. But then the following year, they said, rates are going up 60%.
Wow.
So our rent for a 750 square foot apartment was going to be about $2,300.
That's crazy.
And we were just like, that's a mortgage.
Yeah.
So cut that deal with my family, or with my parents. They were empty nesters. And so that was a fun year of moving back in with mom and dad after being out for several. But yeah, got to Cartersville solely because it was affordable. But after even just a month, I feel like it was like, whoa, something's different out here.
Yeah.
Like the energy is different. Like the downtown feel doesn't just feel like a collection of different businesses. It all feels, it's a weird analogy, but it almost feels just like an ecosystem, like a reef almost. Like there's functioning pieces and they all work together to make the city awesome.
Yep.
And we're lucky. And now I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Like I could see us living here forever. My wife still teaches in Kennesaw, so she's going to be the biggest fighter on it. But we love Cartersville. Whenever family comes and visits from out of town and out of state, my parents live in Kennesaw still, so they stay with my parents, obviously. But I'm always just like, hey, come out and spend a day with us in Cartersville, because there's plenty to offer.
There's plenty to do. I have friends that I talk to and people that I meet all the time, and I tell them I'm from Cartersville, and a lot of them will have heard of Cartersville for the museums or for Trevor Lawrence. That's usually the two responses I get. But I tell my friends all the time, come spend a weekend, come spend a Saturday, go downtown, shop, eat, go to the museum. And we've got a lot to offer here. And again, we are just very blessed as a community.
Which is funny, because when I first moved here and I told friends and people that live in Metro Atlanta, oh yeah, we got a place in Cartersville, and they're like, out in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, no, trust me, 5 minutes from downtown. At
the Capitol in Atlanta, for some, it's like shock and awe that I live in Cartersville. I drive back and forth to the Capitol. And I do. I commute back and forth during the session because I can. It saves a lot of money. As you know, you were just talking about how housing further in to Atlanta is even more expensive. And so I like to sleep in my own bed and be around my kids at night. So I drive back and forth, and some of these folks just think that Cartersville might as well be 5 hours from the Capitol. But we really are close, and it offers the best of all worlds, I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So lived here your whole life. You've grown up here. You went to school here. Where did you end up going to college? Or did you go to college?
I did. My brother went to Georgia. My wife went to Georgia. I wanted to go to Georgia, and full disclosure, I didn't get into Georgia. And so my options were LaGrange College, where my mom and dad met, or Reinhardt. I got accepted at Reinhardt. And then a little school in Tennessee called Lee University. And I had been going to the youth group at the Cartersville Church of God when I was in middle school and high school. I'd never heard of Lee, didn't know what Lee was, didn't know where Cleveland, Tennessee, had never been to Cleveland, Tennessee. And I followed a lot of those youth members up to Lee because there was an affiliation with that denomination, and ended up there at Lee, which is about, at that time, about 3,000 students. It's now about 5,000 students, a small Christian school. And it was the perfect place for me to be because it was big enough that you still got a college experience, but it was small enough where you still kind of knew or recognized everybody, and met so many wonderful people. I got a degree in political science there and enjoyed my time in Cleveland, which again is another place a lot like Cartersville. It's considered somewhat of a suburb of Chattanooga, and a lot of people live in Cleveland and work in Chattanooga and drive back to Cleveland to enjoy the quality of life. But right there at the Ocoee River, where a lot of folks go and do whitewater rafting and all kinds of stuff. But so that's where I went for college. And then when I finished at Lee, I came back to Cartersville, and Danae and I got married that same year, and we've been here ever since.
Awesome. So you mentioned getting a degree in political science. I'd like to think that I know your answer to this, but was life in public service, life in politics, was that something that you knew from the get-go was going to be your path, or was it something that maybe developed close, like while you're at college and you're like, well, my family's done it, I'll try it, or was there ever another timeline in the universe where Matthew Gambill's doing something other than public service?
So I don't know that I really ever saw myself specifically doing it. I just knew that I was interested in it. And keep in mind, I had grown up around the kitchen table talking about, my mom and dad were in education. So, we talked a lot about education.
Real quick, guys, I want to talk about the team that makes your morning drive possible. Hammerhead Creations is my marketing company right here in Cartersville, Georgia. And honestly, it's built for businesses exactly like yours. If you're a small business owner who knows you need to be showing up online, but just don't have the time, or you don't want to hire a full-time employee to handle it, that's where we come in. We're talking websites, social media management, email marketing, and yes, podcasts. Whatever it takes to keep your brand visible and moving forward. We've worked with businesses all across Georgia and beyond, and I'd love to see what we can do for you. So go to hammerheadcreations.com to learn more, or shoot me an email at logan@hammerheadcreations.com. Let's get to work so that you too can swim with the big sharks.
My grandfather had been on the city school board at one time. I had my Uncle Joe Frank, who, for the better part of my childhood was governor, and prior to that was our state representative in this seat that I'm in now. And so public service was something that was always just, expected, or an ideal that was, encouraged, is to get involved and to help people. And the real education that I got was not that degree from Lee University. The real education I got was riding around in the pickup truck with my grandfather all over Bartow County. And I spent a lot of time with him, and we were very close. And he would talk to me about his life growing up. He grew up without a father. He grew up, they moved here for work. They moved here to work at the Goodyear Mill in Atco because that was the only place that they could find work. And he talked about how hard that time had been. Of course, the Great Depression, World War I, World War II. And then he started a business in the early 1940s and got into the concrete business and had Harris Cement that operated here locally and served kind of this region for a long time until he sold it. But that education in the truck with him and riding all over Bartow, and he would point out different jobs that he had done and different people's homes and farms that he knew, and different stories about just life. That is probably the real education that I got on loving people and serving people, and public service was from spending time with him. So I wish I had a more elaborate answer to give you, but that's my experience.
That must have been crazy though, growing up with family that was like, I'm sorry, I keep messing it up in my head and I'm overthinking it. So uncle was governor, grandfather was like
he was what I would call a city leader.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And keep in mind now, Cartersville's very small at that point.
Yeah.
Now we're huge.
Yeah.
Bartow County's got 115,000 people. at that time, Cartersville was so small, you knew everybody. You went to the grocery store, the park, the restaurants, and you walked in and you knew everybody. So it was a little different time, but yeah.
But either way, still governor. Having your uncle that's the governor, was that like weird at all? Were people just like, oh my God, we can't mess with Matthew because his uncle's the governor? Like anything like that?
No. What the funny thing is that, the governor gets to live in the governor's mansion.
Yeah.
And the governor's mansion is on West Paces Ferry, which is, as you know, in Buckhead, and considered probably one of the most expensive zip codes in the nation, probably.
Really?
And so a lot of kids that I was in school with thought that I was rich because my uncle lived in this house. Well, the governor's mansion is the most expensive public housing that exists, but it is public housing because the taxpayers of the state own the governor's mansion. And it was built and paid for and owned by them. And so I always, oh, you're rich, your uncle's the governor's. Like, no, I'm not. I'm just like y'all. So that was funny growing up. I got a lot of that, and it was mostly razzing and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
So,
yeah. Your friends just giving you crap.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just cutting up with you and just teasing, because it's an easy thing to just say, oh, you're Governor Gambill over here. Like, So was that something? So I think, to put the two answers together, you didn't necessarily go to college and think, I'm going to be the governor.
No.
Like that wasn't like a specific goal.
No, people have probably put that label on me themselves, but no, that was never my goal. My goal was just, to serve. I knew I had this interest in public service and I had worked on campaigns, local campaigns, putting signs out, door knocking. I mean, I've done it all. And that's what I tell people that are interested in getting involved in public office or running for public office is like, unless you're willing to put the sweat equity in, I really don't want to talk to you because it is so much more than – I love what we're doing today. This is great, right?
But it's more than this.
But, folks aren't with me when I'm getting the phone calls late at night or the complicated emails and situations that I have to deal with. And I really do consider it in many ways a ministry to help a lot of people. And that is the real pay in what I do. When I can help somebody with an issue, we get paid $20,000 a year to do this job. It's a part-time job. I have the job with Parish you mentioned a minute ago. And so for me, the real pay is seeing somebody's life change because you helped them with something.
Well, it's funny. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, actually, because up until when I did the podcast with our mayor, Matt Santini, I had not again, this just shows you how much I know Matthew. I did not realize that being the mayor, being a state representative for whatever district, I did not realize that these were part-time jobs.
Yeah.
I just assumed that if you were now, I'm sure if you're the mayor of New York City, that's a different story.
Correct.
But a mayor of a small town in Georgia, like you're not making millions of dollars a year.
No.
So when he told me that, I was like, oh, I feel like I should have known that, but it was just one of those things. I just assumed that if you got elected to public office, that was your job 24/7. And maybe it is in a way, but on paper, it's a part-time job.
On paper, it's a part-time job, but definitely it's a full-time job.
I mean, you're thinking about it all the time.
Full-time job. Yeah, I don't ever get a break. It's 24/7. Texting has become... a couple of years ago when I first started, it wasn't nearly as what it has become, but now the texting has really become hard to manage some days.
Sure. Yeah.
So
you put your phone down. I mean, you're going to get out of this and you're going to probably have at least 10, 15 missed text messages. And you're like, oh God, I'm treating this like my email now.
But I'm not complaining because I begged a lot of people for this job and it's just part of it. So,
How long have you served in this job?
I ran in 2018 and I took the first oath of office, my first term in January of 2019. In January of 2019 through January of 2020, really March of 2020 was great.
Of course.
And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then we had pandemic, we had elections unrest, we had unemployment and financial crisis, and we had racial tension, and so much more. And your elected leaders in the state, none of us were ever trained and prepared to how to handle that specific those many issues at one time.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we had some really good leadership, and I'm going to give the governor of our state, Brian Kemp, a lot of credit for how he led during that time and helped to put us on the right path where we were the last state to close and the first state to reopen from COVID. And that really has positioned us for a lot of what we're dealing with now, which is we have a large state surplus. Again, we're the number one state to do business for the 12th consecutive year. People want to be here. People are coming here. Jobs are coming here because they know they've got a pro-business, pro-family environment, great climate. There's just a lot to offer in Georgia. And so getting through 2020 was interesting. And, it took us several years. It was probably not until 2022 where we really kind of felt like we had come through fully.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, there were some days during 2020 I told my wife, I said, I don't know if I signed up for this.
Yeah.
Because I had 1,500 requests for help from constituents with their unemployment because they came to me because at the time our Department of Labor had basically, you couldn't get anybody on the phone. And so we became the default call center for Department of Labor. That fortunately has since changed, and there's been some improvements made there that I think would help if we ever, God forbid, had to go through something like that again. But, those are the things that they don't teach a class on that. It's just like
there's no handbook.
You got to roll your sleeves up and take care of this.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I'm glad. This is great. I'm learning so much already, Matthew. I didn't realize that we were the last state to close and the first to open.
That's right.
That's interesting
Mm-hmm.
because at the time I was working full time, not for myself. And when we closed, I was like, come on, because like the next week I was supposed to go to Disney World.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if Georgia's closed, then Florida's obviously closed. And the day that I was supposed to start packing my bags to go to Disney World was the day that Disney World closed. And I was like, oh man, it's serious if Disney closes? Because I'm pretty sure Disney's closed like 4 times in the history of its opening, like 9/11, 2 hurricanes, and COVID. Like those are the only times Disney's ever closed. And I was like,
right.
Damn it. If Disney closed, then this is going to be a problem.
Right.
And it was. Yeah, I can imagine serving in any office for any party for anybody during COVID.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, there's no handbook on how to deal with it. And on top of that, there's the racial tensions, there's the election unrest, there's all of these different things that are just compiling. 2020 was a horrible year for the world, but the country too. Just horrible year.
It was.
I mean, just what a wild time.
Wild times. And, we didn't have the benefit of a lot of data that had been available when the last pandemic had occurred back in the late 1919s, I think it was. And so we just had to do the best we could. And our governor, again, he got up every day and put his boots on and went to work. And I've talked to him many times, and I know there were many days where he probably questioned, am I doing the right thing? But he made the right calls, and we came through it very well.
Yeah, he's been a pretty freaking great governor for Georgia. Yeah. I mean, he's done a lot of things that takes that party line and kind of blurs it a little bit. He's done a lot of good things for a lot of people. I just wish more people would go and educate themselves on those facts.
Yeah.
Because it's easy, at least nowadays, like I remember back when I was growing up, going through middle school, high school, like everything was like, you don't talk about your politics with people. It's their business. And now it's people make it their entire personality.
Correct.
And they believe everything they see on the internet, which is a horrible thing to live by.
Awful.
So I always just encourage people to go and check out the facts from the official blue check mark sources to educate yourselves, or the websites of your legislators or your local government, just because there's some great things that he has done, and I'm sure so many other governors and presidents and state representatives, but people just, they take one bad headline and they run with it, and they just assume the worst about Matthew Gambill or Brian Kemp or whoever.
Yeah.
So it's got to be stressful because you probably see untrue things about you guys all the time.
We do. And, fortunately at the local and state level, it's not quite as bad as what you see on the national stage, thank goodness. But there's still so much good that goes on that unfortunately you don't hear about. But perfect example, I carried a bill this year that provided the state income tax rebates. And so yesterday I went to my post office box and I got my mail, and there was my $500 check in the mail. And I looked at it and I said, how cool is that?
I got mine last night. Thank you for that.
Pass this bill. Now, granted, it was the governor's bill. I'm a floor leader for the governor, and it was his idea. It's the fourth time that we've done that. But, I don't know how your household is, but $500 in my household with 3 kids goes a long way to helping us pay bills and whatever it might be. And so I was really proud that I was able to carry that bill and that governor made that a priority.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, like I checked our accounts last night for some other reason, and then I was like, hey, that $500 came through.
That's right, yeah.
And I think my wife and I were just like, thanks, Kemp, or whoever. But yeah, it's stuff like that makes, I love at the local level, like we're constantly reminded with things like that our local government does care about us.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes, when you're thinking about national politics, like it's hard to think that some things will affect me. What will affect me? What won't affect me? Because when the White House and Congress are passing these crazy bills, it's like, how much am I going to really see from this?
Right.
But at the local level, I mean, a perfect example is, I know this is a podcast about Matthew Gambill, but we'll touch on this for Brian Kemp in a second. And shoot, maybe you have a lot more to do with this than I think, but for the past several years, my wife is an educator in Cobb County. And for the past several years, it seems like Georgia or Kemp or you or whoever has just found excess money in budgets. And Kemp just keeps passing these raises, bonuses, stipends to teachers or public servants. And every time that happens, my wife's just like, that's just more reason to keep supporting Kemp and whoever else is involved, because it's such a blessing.
And it's now to the tune of $10,000 over the last almost 8 years that we've given teachers pay raises. And we're very proud of that. We fully funded education. The governor has made that a priority. We still have an incredible teachers retirement system with a great retirement that, it just doesn't exist anymore. And great state health benefit plan. I know no one is ever happy with their health insurance, but by and large, if you look at the state health benefit options versus the open market, you will see very quickly that we have a great state health benefit plan for our teachers and state employees. But I guess the only challenging thing with the $10,000 pay raise is that because of inflation, I wonder how much it's made a true difference like what we had intended it to. But at the same time, it's $10,000 that has at least helped teachers hedge inflation a little bit and helped them along the way. So very proud that the legislature and the governor has made that a priority.
Yeah, it's really nice. And even with or without inflation, with me being a small business owner and her being an educator and these bonuses, whether they do a ton or not, it still helps us, prepare for the future and save. And with the inflation, it's like, oh man, we might not be able to save as much per month, but with little things like that, or the $500, stipend or whatever you call it, the tax relief thing, it's, it all helps. It all goes somewhere.
It does. It does. And we've done much more than just the $500 rebate. I'll mention real quickly. Everyone will receive a $500 credit towards their homestead property tax this November.
Really?
So we funded that in the budget this year. And granted, again, $500 is a lot of money in my house. So that will be deducted from how much everyone owes on their homestead property, not commercial, not rental and all that, but just their homestead. And then we did lower the state income tax rate down to 4.99%. And I'm very proud that we were able to do that. There's still conversations about looking at getting rid of income tax altogether, like Florida and Tennessee, but we haven't done that yet. And I think that might be something that future governors and legislative sessions look at. But for this specific year, we were very tuned in and are tuned in to tax relief and helping people, with their paychecks and putting their money back in their pocket.
Well, that's funny, Matthew, you keep asking the questions before I ask them myself, but I was just going to ask, because we were talking about the tax relief, I was thinking like, man, I keep seeing headlines on Facebook or whatever about this premise of getting rid of income tax. I'm sure that's a huge, really reworking of so many different things for that to actually happen. And people always wonder, well, if income tax is, gone? Are taxes going to go up in other categories? Like, so,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't even know. I'm such a dummy when it comes to economics. Like, I don't know how any of it works because I know, like, I was raised on like nothing in life is free.
Right.
So like, where if something's free here, then it's just going to be more expensive somewhere else. So I don't know how it works, but I assume it's a huge undertaking.
It is.
All right, guys, I got to tell you about something that I'm a huge fan of, and I've been fan of for many, many years. Those who have engaged with this show and listened for a while, you know that I'm a fan of Good Days canned cocktails. They aren't your average drink. They're not your average seltzer, ready to drink canned cocktail, whatever you might think it is. It is not that. Good Days are inspired by classic cocktails. It's in the name. We're talking about sea breezes, whiskey sours, vodka ritas, gin gimlets, the whole nine, made with real juice, premium vodka, and American whiskey. Stuff that you'd actually order at a bar, and it tastes like it too, just in a can. They've also just dropped their new Splash line, vodka sodas in a cranberry, a lime, and a grapefruit, which are clean, simple, and very crushable. Whether you're tailgating, you're on the water, you're watching a game, or you're just winding down after a long week, Good Days has you covered. You can check them out by going to their website, drinkgooddays.com. Of course, you have to be 21 years of age to purchase and consume Good Days, but go to their website, find a location where they're sold near you, and hit them up, purchase their product, and enjoy it like I have for years. They've supported Your Morning Drive almost since the beginning. And so we just love to support and give back to them. Again, that's drinkgooddays.com. Good days are ahead.
There's a lot of things to take into consideration when we're talking about eliminating or reducing a tax here and how it might affect over here. But there's been a lot of proposals considered to look at ways to provide tax relief. And so this past legislative session, we had a bill that would have eliminated property tax altogether by replacing it with an additional 2-penny sales tax for local communities that, in theory, would have replaced the amount lost by exempting homestead, your primary residence from property tax. That bill, unfortunately, did not pass, but we have passed a bill, and this is in effect now for Bartow County, and I'm very proud that our legislative delegation did this, but we passed legislation where the assessed values of your home, your homestead, they cannot go up more than 3% in a year. And if the consumer price index doesn't go up, they can't go up at all. Because what we had seen and heard from a lot of people were that they were getting, a 15 or 20% or even 30% increase in 1 year on their property tax. And that's hard to budget. I don't know very many
That's horrifying
people
sounding.
that can budget for that. And so this will at least provide some certainty that, hey, it may go up, but it's not going to go up. The assessed value is not going to go up more than 3% in any given year. So very happy to do that. We had another bill that would have eliminated the state income tax altogether. And I think that once we get past this governor's race that we're in now, that the legislature will come back and revisit that. I think that one is probably the one that's easier to do because it doesn't impact the local county, city, and school system governments that depend on property tax as much. And so, we may end up there, but a lot of that is still somewhat of a question mark. The good thing about all these conversations about tax relief is that we have a legislature that is listening and trying to figure out ways to provide tax relief. And I would a whole lot rather be down in Atlanta talking about ways to cut taxes and to reduce government and get government out of the lives of people than talking about more programs and more things that just cost more money, more entitlements. We already have a national debt that all of us, if you're not worried about, you should be very concerned about. We haven't passed a balanced budget in years. We continue to operate off of continuing resolutions in Washington. And let me be very clear. A lot of people think that we do that in Atlanta. We do not do that in Atlanta. We pass a balanced budget. We are required by our Constitution to do that. So we don't deficit spend. We don't spend money that we don't have. Unfortunately, in Washington, the deadlock has created the dynamic that exists. And so something's got to be done because we're on a path that's not going to be great for our country.
Well, I'm curious, you can go into it as much or as little as you want, but why should I? Just playing devil's advocate, why should I be concerned with this? Obviously, this debt is huge, and every time you look at it, it's in the multi-trillions, it seems, at this point.
Yeah.
What does that, what could that, or what does that mean for us?
Well, I boil it back down to your own personal finance at home. If you spend more money than you take in, you're eventually the debt's going to get called. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose your possessions. Your destiny is controlled by your lenders. And so, in many ways, the debtor is a slave to the lender.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, as a country, don't need to be in debt to anybody.
No.
And at one time we weren't, and we need to get back to that point.
So, I just don't understand, why can't we just not, this is going to sound so dumb just saying it out loud, Matthew, just warning you. Why can't we just not spend crazy money? Why can't we take, to kind of boil it back down to mayors and state representatives, why can't we pay Congress part-time? Why can't we pay the president? I know the president, that's a full-time job. That's 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Why can't we significantly just reduce those salaries and have those salaries just go straight to the budget? Is it just because people won't serve if they know that they're not being paid? Why can't we just refunnel money where, kind of with the whole whether you feel good or bad about it or not, but the whole Doge thing of finding unnecessary spending? Why can't we just take $3,000 a year out of each of these representatives' salaries, in Congress, not at the state level, but you know what I'm saying? Why can't we just take a little bit of money, but that little bit of money could just eat at that debt over time? I just don't understand why we don't.
Well, and I don't want to throw everybody in Washington under the bus, because there's certainly been a lot of great leaders that are have been there and are there now who are trying to do what they can to fix this and right the ship. And so there is a lot of meaningful things that are being done. I, for one, appreciated the look at the budget through Doge. And we even had similar kind of views of that here at the state level. I think that should be our responsibility all the time. I mean, again, I go back to your home finance. I look at my budget all the time to figure out, okay, where are ways that I can save?
What's unnecessary here at home?
Do I really need this service? Do I need this app?
Do I need Paramount Plus?
Do I need to renegotiate my internet? I mean, where can I save money to help stretch my dollar further? And so, state government is the same way. It shouldn't be they're terrible for looking at ways to cut money. No, there can be inefficiencies in anything. And so we should be focused on finding those inefficiencies and trying to be more efficient. But I think that in Washington, it's been going on for so long, we're so deep into it that it's going to take a long time and a lot of effort and self-control to fix it. I think it can be fixed, but it's going to take some folks making some tough decisions and thinking outside the box about things that we've been funding and what we're doing, and do we really need certain things? Are those essential? But we have got to focus on that. I got asked by one of the congressional candidates that's running for Congressional District 11. He asked me, he said, what's the number one thing that you'd like to see Washington do? And I said, balance the budget. So we all need to be really dialed into that.
Yeah, who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens after this, next little election cycle that they're going through. When is the governor's race done? When is election day?
Yeah, May 19th is the primary for our state, and that has the governor's race all the way on down. It has the U.S. Senate race as well on both parties, Democrat and Republican. There'll be a runoff in June, and forgive me for not knowing that date off the top of my head. I want to say it's the 16th maybe. But anyway, mid-June will be the runoff for that, any race that requires a runoff, and then the November general election. Okay. And that will be the one that will determine the final outcome of those races.
It stinks because, me and my wife were talking the other night, talking about this, the state relief, and then the many bonuses and reliefs that they've given to teachers and public servants and whatnot. And we're just damn, Kemp's on his way out. I hope the next guy or gal or whoever, I hope the next person takes that stuff seriously too, because that's been nice. I mean, it's not stuff we've counted on, but then once we see the headlines, or once my wife gets the email from her principal that says great news, Cobb County's getting, such and such, it's just been nice here and there. So I hope the next person keeps that going, because that's been nice.
I do too. It has been great to be a part of that. I hope it continues.
And so what's your role over at Parish like?
So I'm in business development, which is a fancy way to say sales. And Parish is a company that's been in existence for the last 30 years. It started in Perry, Georgia. It's Georgia-based construction company. We do commercial and industrial construction, so we don't do any residential of any kind. And it started out mostly as a school builder. So we've built a lot of schools around the state. But over the past 10 years, the business has diversified, and now we're doing a lot of industrial construction, as well as healthcare, county and city projects, and water and wastewater. We got into that a few years ago as well. I am focused on the industrial pursuits that we have. So that could be anything from a renovation to a manufacturer or a new build. And then I also work on the higher education pursuits. So that could be a college project at a public or private college. And then our private schools on the K-12 side, there's sometimes construction there in that space. And so those are the markets that I work in, chasing and identifying opportunities for Parish. But that's a little bit about them. We have about 150 employees, and we operate out of 3 offices, one in Perry, the main office, the one that I'm based out of, which is in Alpharetta. I don't have to go over there every day. And then a third one that we just recently opened up in Savannah, Georgia, to help with some of the growth that's down there in that part of the state.
I assume with you serving this part-time role, this significant part-time role that you've got, I assume Parish is very accommodating, and like when you do have to go and serve your time down in Atlanta to do what you have to do representing, the district, I assume your colleagues and uppers at Parish are supportive, and they don't, of course everything comes with balance. It's not like, but do you get that flexible kind of?
I do, and I'm blessed that they allow me to do that, because if they didn't, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know that when January rolls around, Gambill's going to be a little less available, but I'm still on my emails and phone calls and still able to do some things during the legislative session, but it does limit what I can do. So what ends up happening, Logan, is after session's done and I get those 3 months out of the way, the rest of the year, I feel like I'm playing catch up, trying to make up for those 3 months that I was gone, because my colleagues that I work with, they've been busting their tails for 12 months, 24/7. And they don't treat me that way. It's probably pressure that I put on my own self, just wanting to make sure that I'm, doing right by Parish and working hard and doing a good job. So it's busy, and then balancing the legislative responsibilities on top of it, and raising kids and, full-time responsibilities there. It's a lot of moving parts.
Sure. And yeah, construction is no joke, especially at this commercial kind of level. I mean, that's why we grew up around the country a lot, is because my dad is in commercial construction as well. He works for a company called Holder.
Oh yeah, very familiar with them.
And so they took us around the country a lot growing up. So I've been all over the place. So I understand the kind of the environment, and the 40 hours a week isn't realistic for those that are doing construction full time, right. Whether you're in the project management side, kind of the office side of things, or whether you're, doing the field side.
Yep.
I know that it's hard work, and it's long days and long hours, early mornings and late nights. So it's cool that they give you that balance, and that you can make your state representative role work, but also serve in Parish when it makes sense. It's really cool that they give you that flexibility.
Yeah, that I'm very, very blessed that they do that. And Holder's a great company. I remember Tommy Holder. Yeah. Everybody knew Tommy Holder. Yeah. And one thing I've always admired and appreciated from Tommy and Holder is that they have always been very involved in supporting the skilled trades and Skills USA and the competitions that our high school students have, where they compete in those areas. And then they hire a lot of those students when they have come through those programs. And Tommy's been day one. I mean, he's invested a lot in that, and I respect that.
Yeah, Holder's been great to our family and everything. My brother works for them out in Phoenix, and my dad works for them obviously here. He's all over the place doing these mega projects that Holder does.
Yep.
But yeah, I know it's good work, and Tommy's hilarious. When I interned at Holder when I was in college, and I was working in like BIM VDC kind of department, and so when I was and a little bit of IT too, and when I got hired, they had opened up their new office over there in Atlanta off of Riverwood Parkway.
Right.
And they were setting up the office, and people were moving to their desks and getting their new offices set up. And there was IT issues out the wazoo. I'm sure you can imagine, moving into a new office. So I was running around the office all the time, and I was running so much that Tommy just started calling me Scooter. And so anytime that I saw Tommy, he was like, "What's up, Scooter?"
Yeah.
And yeah,
This podcast is proudly sponsored by Cartersville Living, powered by Best Version Media. Their magazine is a go-to source for uplifting local content, expert insights, community events, and more. They're bringing people together every month with compelling stories and informative articles from around town. Each new edition of Cartersville Living brings us closer to our vision of uniting the community, one person, one home, and one business at a time.
love Tommy. He's
great guy.
Good friends with my dad and family. It's been great.
Yeah.
Great company. So what's your wife do?
My wife is a stay-at-home mom for the most part. She does volunteer and is the director of the LifeWise Academy program that we have here, which is a unique program where we she takes 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students out of Cartersville Elementary and Cartersville Middle and basically gives them a Bible class elective during the school day. It has to be done off school property, and it's not advertised by the school, but the students have an opportunity to really kind of find out about it word of mouth. But it's a unique program, and they started it about 3 years ago now, and it's grown. We're getting close to 270 kids that are taking this class, and it's just a great way to introduce them to some of the concepts of the Bible, which are found throughout our government documents and the founding of our country. And so Danae does that, but that's a part-time. That's not really anything full-time. She's with our kids the rest of the time. So that's what she does. Now, before she stayed home to raise kids, she worked for the Georgia Hospital Association. She worked for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and worked for the Georgia Department of Education. So she's done a little bit in that professional side, but she's definitely still working just in a different capacity as a mom and raising our kids. And
Sure.
So
It's the best job of all.
it is, and I couldn't do what I do without her. So I make sure that people always know that I give them credit for letting me do this.
My dad's similar with the construction life. My mom was a stay-at-home mom also, and it's the hardest job ever.
Yeah.
And, when you're a kid, you don't give mom a lot of credit. We went through phases like at Christmas or birthdays, everything was thanks dad, thanks dad, thanks dad, because dad was the one that was working.
Right.
But as an adult, you're like, oh, mom was working harder than dad was.
Absolutely.
She was juggling 3 kids and moving around the country all the time and having to get new doctors and pediatricians and dentist, like doing everything. Mom worked harder than dad probably did.
Yeah.
So yeah, we love the opportunity to have a stay-at-home mom situation. That's really cool. A funniest story about that is I worked at a bank a few years ago, a local credit union, and I was doing a loan for someone, and I'd never heard this term before, but someone, we're doing a loan for this couple, husband does yada yada yada. Wife, she says, "Oh, I'm a homemaker." And I was like, "Oh, what's a homemaker? You like a builder or something?" So stupid.
Yeah.
And she was like, "No, that's what they call stay-at-home moms. It's like the official title of a stay-at-home mom now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. It's the politically correct version of stay-at-home mom, right?"
Yeah.
So later on, before I submit the application, I always went through it with them and reconfirmed information just to make sure I had everything typed in, right income, everything. And I said, "Okay, Matthew, you do such, yada, yada, yada. Ma'am, you said you're a home wrecker." And immediately the woman was like, and I was like, "What did I say? What did I do?" And she was like, "Home wrecker?" And I was like, oh God, did I say home wrecker?
Yeah.
And so anytime someone mentions like stay at home mom, I think of home wrecker.
That's hilarious.
So
I love it.
definitely not the home wrecker,
No,
folks.
no.
But so I meant to bring this up when you mentioned Holder, but you're very passionate about like trades.
Yes.
And like, while, you know, education is insanely important, you know, it's cool that we now as a society have navigated to this place where it's like, you know, college still very important, still very necessary for you, depending on the kind of work you plan to do. But if you're going to be, I don't know, if you're going to be welding, I don't know if it 100% makes sense for you to go and get a generic business degree from Kennesaw State when you're going to be, you know, you're going to get out of college and you want to go into welding. So then you're going to spend time, you know, at trade school learning your craft. So tell me a little bit about your passion for that whole just trade initiative and kind of the stuff that you mentioned that Holder does and everything in between.
I love it because it changes people's lives. And it changed it changed our family's life. And it started again, you know, so much about what we're talking about. I go back to my grandfather, but he realized working at Goodyear that he was never going to get promoted because he didn't have a college degree. And so he went back and took, at that time, vocational classes that were offered through Georgia Tech, because this is before we had the technical college system of Georgia. And he learned the basics of masonry. And that's what gave him a skill set to get into the concrete business. And the rest is history on that. So that changed our whole family's life when Harris Cement and, you know, my other Uncle Fred, who recently passed away, always told me, he said, Matthew, I made more money in business because I knew how to weld than anything else I did. And that was not a degree he had gotten. It was just a skill that he had learned through the years and auditing a welding class that he was able to learn to weld. And so again, you know, when I was at Cartersville High School as a student, I took CTAE. I took graphic arts 3 semesters, learned that. I always tell people, had I not gone on to college, I could have gotten hired on at the time at the Tribune News or one of the local print shops doing design and things like that for advertising or just marketing, things like that. I did go on to college and got that 4-year degree, but the thing about CTAE and what it does in the lives of students, whether they're going to get a 4-year degree, an associate's, a certificate, is it gives them a skill set that they have the rest of their life. It also helps to help them figure out what they like and don't like. And the most expensive career exploration that we have is what we send people to college, that if they get to college and they don't know what they want to do, we're paying a lot of money to help them figure that out. So the earlier on we can have those conversations, and, you know, it's not telling a 5-year-old, hey, you're going to be a plumber or you're going to be an electrician, but it's just starting those conversations early about what careers exist. So during the time I've been in the legislature and the last 4 years as a floor leader for Governor Kemp, I've carried all of our workforce development legislation that has been what's called the High Demand Career Initiative, Top State for Talent, which is trying to encourage all of our students to pursue high demand careers, and many of them are skilled trades. And so the value of that traditional 4-year degree for all students is something that I think a lot of people are realizing, hey, we may have missed the mark on that. And I've told my son, David, he's a freshman at Cartersville. I said, David, if you want to go to Chattahoochee Technical College and learn to be an electrician or a plumber, I will help you start a business, and there's plenty of work going on. We need kids pursuing those options, and they can make a lot of money and have a very successful life doing that.
Amen. I agree. Absolutely. I want to also touch real quick on because of course this podcast is happening because of our good friend, Kevin Harris.
Yeah.
You are passionate also about addiction and recovery.
Yes.
And is there a specific reason why? You can, again, go into as much or as little as possible, but kind of why such a knack for that whole world?
Yeah. So it was not originally a part of what I ran on when I first started running. Although I will say, and you know this, everyone is impacted by someone that is dealing with addiction or has dealt with addiction, either directly or indirectly. You've either got a family member or a friend or yourself. And so it's a major issue for our state. And so when I ran in 2018, Barbara Hoffman came up to me, and I had known Barbara and her family growing up, and her kids and I were all kind of the same age, and we're in this youth group together. And she came up to me and she said, Matthew, you've got to do something about this issue. She was dealing with, her son had, an incredible story of kind of overcoming addiction himself. And she said, you need to focus on this and make this a priority. And I loved Barbara. I mean, Barbara was someone that I looked up to as a young person and had an influence on my life. So I said, Barbara, you're right. I will. I didn't know what that would look like at the time, but what it ended up being is I got elected and got in the legislature and got hooked up with the Georgia Council on Recovery and a guy named Jeff Breedlove. And we now have a formal working group on addiction and recovery that is bipartisan. So we've got Democrats and Republicans, and it's bicameral. So we've got House members and Senate members that are focused on issues related to helping folks in recovery to either get them into recovery or minimize the stigma associated with recovery and help them get back into successful jobs, families, church, whatever it is. If they are in recovery, we now have a mechanism in place to support them right here locally with the RCO, the arena that we've got, Recovery Bartow and Jessica Mitchum and all her folks, the work that Kevin does with All In or All Out. God bless him. Yesterday I was up at the Bartow County Jail with him and Janet Queen and Mark Maton, just talking to 12 guys and 6 women that are in this intensive program.
They're great folks.
They're doing God's work, and we ought to be there standing there cheering everybody on that wants to move on with life and get substance free. And so that has been a big focus for me, and it's been a blessing.
Yeah, seeing the work that I went up there with him to the jail one time just to kind of film him doing stuff, and he had Big Rich Brock do a comedy show for the guys, and it was a really cool thing because when's the last time they laughed?
Yeah,
and stuff like people make silly mistakes when they're young or they get into a financial hardship, so they do what they need to do to survive, and some people just fall into it based on like their parents or just hanging with the wrong crowd. So I think we absolutely should be helping those folks. It's good work that Kevin's doing and all these other people too. And so, yeah, I love that, with the tiny home community he's putting in, and it's actually, I'm sure he says it everywhere he goes now. He's like, it's actually happening now.
Yeah.
I've been talking about it for years, but it's actually happening now. So I'm really excited to see what that's going to help and do for the general area as well.
Me too.
I want to ask you real quickly, and if you hate this, I can absolutely cut this out.
Okay.
But this is very topical. Georgia passed the high school cell phone bill.
Yeah, man.
And we can cut it out if we want to. I'm just curious.
No, we're not cutting it out. We'll talk about
hell
it.
yeah. Well, me and a mutual friend of ours, but we were talking about this bill, and because she's got a high school student, and we were talking about how like on one hand it's a great thing because if I can recognize that speaking of addiction, I am addicted to my phone. I'm on it way too much. It's a problem. It's a serious issue. Sometimes I feel like I'm not connecting with my wife or people around me because I'm doing this all the time.
Right.
And so I feel like kids need that, or we're going to have some issues later on in life. But also on the other hand, what about all the angry folks that say, well, I want to be able to communicate with my kid. I want to do this, that, and the other. What was that kind of process like, getting that bill going through?
Well, we did. Representative Scott Hilton carried both bills, and he's a friend of mine. The first bill was middle school and younger grades. And so,
guys, I want to tell you about something really cool happening right here in Cartersville. All In or All Out Ministry is hosting their first annual Mic Drop Masters comedy event on September the 11th out at Georgia Highlands College in Cartersville in their gym. The event is Laughs for a Purpose, and that purpose is real. They're raising money for an incredible cause, and they need your support to hit their goal. Whether you want to grab a ticket, make a donation, or just spread the word, every little bit helps. Head over to givebutter.com/AIAO-mic-drop-masters-2026 to check it out. The link is in the description of the episode so that you can go down, donate, get involved, and it's going to be a ton of fun. We've got 8 great people from around Cartersville going around fundraising, raising money. So if you want to support any of them or donate to the mission overall or sponsor, if you're an organization that wants to get your name out there more, we're going to have a great time at Georgia Highlands on the 11th of September. So come out and support. Link is in the description. And to support AIAO, go to their website, AIAO Ministry.
We left high school out. And then this year we came back and did high school. And the governor just signed the high school bill on Tuesday of this week. But, I've had a couple calls about it. For anybody that's at Cartersville or any of our local schools, I really don't think it's going to change anything because they already had cell phone policies in place. So it's really not this big deal. But we are trying to send a message and support our teachers that are constantly doing battle with phones. And I don't teach in the public schools, but I do teach Sunday school, and I've got middle school boys, and I pass around the bucket before class every Sunday, and I'm like, put your phones in here. I'm not going to compete against your phone for your attention for the next 45 minutes. And for some of them, it's hard to do. You can tell. I mean, they're on those phones all the time.
It's almost like when you take a cigarette away from someone who's an avid smoker, they they get fidgety. It's weird, man.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I actually do, just kind of talking random. We had in the 90s the master settlement agreement with the tobacco companies where they got sued and they had to pay out all these payments for producing advertising that a lot of people got addicted to cigarettes and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I think probably the next class action is going to be on cell phones.
Maybe.
And the addictiveness of what folks are putting into apps and social media platforms that just draw people back and back and back. It's in many ways like what the tobacco companies were doing back in the day with some of the marketing that they were doing.
Who gets in that situation? Let's just say that happens. Who gets sued? Is it Apple and Motorola and all these cell phone companies? Google.
It could be. Now listen, I'm not.
Yeah, we're just talking. This is total
be.
In theory.
It could be. I'm gonna just go ahead and kick the can of hornets a little bit further. The debate about sports betting.
Okay, that's a fun one.
It is a fun one, and I get that we're missing revenue that we could be collecting, and that a lot of people are sports betting. And I mean, I've heard all the angles on it. What we are getting deeper and deeper into, and this is even from guys that I know that are very pro sports betting, is the level of marketing that some of the companies that are big in that space are doing to young people to addict them and draw them back in to spend more. And, some of it is just flat out unethical.
Yeah. I mean, some of it is like, hey, come in, spend $5 and we'll give you 200.
Right.
And it's like, whoa,
right.
Like imagine if you bought cigarettes and they say, if you buy 1 pack of cigarettes, Matthew, we'll give you 6 cartons for free.
Yeah.
And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
That's gotta be wrong.
Yeah. And those algorithms, I mean, these companies have even admitted to it. I mean, we're really looking at it closely. So I want to just say, when people ask us about certain issues, there's a lot of things that we have to look at before we pass legislation and make a clear decision on what we're going to do or not do. So anyway.
I'd never thought about the sports betting thing. I mean, I bet on sports only. I usually take a guy's trip to Las Vegas once a year with my dad and brother and some cousins and uncles, and we just do a horse betting thing for when the what's it called, the Breeders' Cup is going on.
Yeah.
And while we're there, I'll bet on Georgia and Tennessee or NFL games. But I'm not even a huge sports guy as it is. I mean, I'll support Georgia and other local teams, but I'm not like a diehard.
Yeah.
But my cousin is a diehard Packers fan, so when you get there, he's like, all my money on the Packers. I'm like, bro, you can't bet with your heart. You got to bet with the stats.
Yeah.
Because of course, if you bet with your heart, you'll be disappointed even more when they lose. But yeah, the sports betting conversation, that's an interesting one. Whether it's a personal testimonial, whether you guys legalize it or don't, doesn't matter to me, Matthew.
Yeah.
So I won't be mad at you one way or another.
Gotcha.
But I'll tell you this, Matthew, there comes a point in every conversation I have with my guests that we just spent the last hour or so talking about who you are, where you've come from, the things that you're passionate about with helping Georgia and beyond, and things to think about with the national debt and all these subjects. Very educational and very informative stuff. But I want to get to know, who's Matthew Gambill when no one's looking? So I'm going to ask you some deeply personal questions, Matthew.
Okay.
I should have sent you these in advance.
That's okay.
But I don't ask anybody. I'm totally these are first date questions. These are trivial things, Matthew. So what is your favorite movie?
Oh, man. Well, I grew up a James Bond fan, but I'm not just any James Bond fan. I'm a Roger Moore James Bond fan, which I know is kind of weird for some people that like Sean Connery or
Pierce Brosnan,
Daniel Cameron that came later, great Bonds and all. But I like Roger Moore, and just big fan of any of the Roger Moore James Bond. Outside of that, I would then probably say Shawshank Redemption. Man, there's so many that we could name, but those are just a few that
That's a crazy movie.
That is a crazy
First
movie.
time I watched that was only like it was probably 5 years ago or so, but I remember watching it with my grandparents, and I was like, God, this movie's like 3 hours. I don't want to watch it. But like 45 minutes in, I was like, oh, this is still okay. But by the time it ended, I was like, my mind is, that might be the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
From just top to bottom, acting, performances, direct, the whole thing, just crazy movie. Matthew, you get to organize Cartersville's next big music festival. You get an unlimited budget. You can get in a time machine and bring anybody from the past that you want to. Who are your 3 headliners for this music festival? We don't care about what's going to drive the most revenue or ticket sales or any of that. We just want to put on a music festival for Matthew Gambill, who's performing.
So that's a hard question to ask me because I'm a musical person, and my mom is very musical, and I like all music. So I don't have just one genre that I only listen to. So it's hard for me to narrow down specifically, and I'm scared to even say some of the things that come to mind because I'm like, I'm gonna get made fun of.
No, dude, some people get in
listen
here
to this and make fun of me. But I listen to a lot of yacht rock radio on XM radio, and so kind of that genre and everything that's in that. And then I like Ella Langley and have been listening to some of her music here lately.
Matthew Gambill is an Ella fella. Have you heard this term?
No,
Ella
I haven't,
fella?
but I'm just, if people make fun of me for it, so be it. I really like some of her songs, and
she's from Texas, I can tell, Matthew.
Oh yeah, I know, man. She's great. She's great. And then I'm trying to think. The 80s tribute band that Mike Hobbs had at Georgia Highlands last weekend.
Oh, and I was there.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh my God, Matthew Gambill's here. I need to go find him and actually introduce myself. But I never could find him.
Yeah, well, I was there briefly, but I had heard them before, and they're coming back to the summer concert series. So
they're great.
They're incredible.
I'd never seen them before.
No. And then, being a 90s kid, anybody in the 90s, oh my Lord, the Cranberries and Sister Hazel and oh my gosh, Creed. I'm throwing some random stuff at you.
No judgment on the Creed. My dad listened to 3 bands growing up. It was Creed, Matchbox 20, and the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah.
And so like I can belt out some Creed.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Next Georgia Highlands party, Mike, we need to have Creed perform. I don't know if Georgia Highlands has the Creed budget, but I'm sure we could figure something out.
We'll figure that out.
We'll figure that out. Next state stipend, instead of giving it to the teachers, let's just hire Creed.
Bring Creed in.
Let's bring Creed in.
That's hilarious.
Good answers though. Matthew, you guys are going out to eat. You're going to whatever restaurant. You're out of town. You're trying a new place. You're looking at the appetizer menu.
Okay.
What are 3 appetizers that you guys order just as a default because they're easy or you like them no matter where you go? Basically, what are your 3 go-to appetizers?
Well, let's clarify this because is this with my wife or with my family? Because if I've got my family with me, we're not ordering appetizers.
Let's do you and the wife.
Okay, so I'm with Danae, and I can be anywhere, right?
Anywhere.
Man, I like, of course, calamari. You can't go wrong with calamari.
Love calamari.
There is, so Hal's Steakhouse in Atlanta, I think is the best steak for Atlanta. And so they have an appetizer called lobster labo, which is basically little pieces of lobster that have been deep fried, and it's just amazing. So we go there for like an anniversary or something, that's like a rare treat.
Sure.
But that's probably what I'm looking at.
Oh, sounds great.
I thought you were going to ask me about like local Cartersville restaurants.
Okay, we can do Cartersville too.
Yeah. And I won't say necessarily on the appetizers, but first and foremost, I am a big Doug's Place fan, and you can probably look at me and tell. But Mark Sullins, and of course, even before him, the Fergusons and everything they started. What a great place! We bring Doug's into the Capitol every single week during session to feed a ton of our members. Yep. Mark brings just tons of vegetables and fried chicken down every week, and people come out of the woodwork to eat that.
Mr. Gambill, I don't want to directly offend you or anybody else, but I haven't been.
You need to go. It's just country cooking.
Well, every time I drive by to go, it's like every parking spot from here to Kennesaw is taken.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I'll get there one day. I just haven't been.
And then my favorite go-to place for if I need to meet somebody that's come to town to, talk work is Appalachian Grill.
Sure. Jackie
does a great job there, and the consistency is so good. But and then I got my local, the Four-Way, Ross's, Scott's Barbecue.
Sure.
Definitely taco and subs.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you about something every business owner needs, and honestly, a lot of people are sleeping on. If you've ever wanted custom hats, shirts, tumblers, laser engraved merch, corporate gifts, anything with your logo on it, you need to check out Branded and Devoted Designs. These folks are right here in North Georgia, and they specialize in making your brand look sharp. We're talking leather patch hats, custom apparel, branded merchandises for businesses, teams, events, you name it. And here's what I love about them. Send your logo, and they handle the rest. Same day quote turnaround during business hours, and bulk pricing is available as well. And if you tell them that Logan from Your Morning Drive sent you, you'll get 10% off your order. So whether you're outfitting your team or building out your company swag, these are your people. I've also used them for years, and they do good work, and they're, again, a local business, so why not support them? Check them out at brandedanddevoteddesigns.com. Tell them Logan sent you. Get 10% off your order at brandedanddevoteddesigns.com. Now, back to the show.
You got to go
an
to
underrated spot.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Great choices.
Yep.
Great choices. And I do enjoy some Appalachian Grill from time to time, and I do dig 8-Track.
Yeah.
Anytime
I like
family comes
8-Track.
into town, I take them to 8-Track.
My only problem with 8-Track is that it's loud in there, and I can't. If I need to have a conversation, it's hard.
This is true.
And you can't. Don't ask them to turn the music down.
No, you can't.
It's just
Can't do that.
non-negotiable.
They'll be like, okay, if you want the music turned down, you can go. Yeah.
So, which is fine, but yeah, Appalachian's the place for a conversation.
Sure. Yeah, 8-Track is loud. I will give you that.
Yeah.
But talk about consistency. Every time I go to 8-Track, I'm pretty pleased.
Yeah.
And it's consistently loud.
Right.
Shouts to Jackie. I've not met him before. Would love to. Matthew, on a day where you have zero responsibility, let's just pretend God took care of it all.
Yeah.
Your wife's got the kids, Parish is taken care of, George is taken care of. How would Matthew recharge? How do you take care of yourself?
Well, again, you probably couldn't look at me and tell I used to run a lot. I still run a little bit. And I probably need to run more. But I have a group of guys that I run with every Saturday morning at 7:30, and we've been running together now for probably 12 or 15 years.
Wow.
So I'll go out to Sam Smith Park and run or walk. Sometimes I just go out there to walk. It's a great place to clear your head. And then I love to go to the Savoy. And, they're constantly changing the exhibits over there, so you can see something new every time you go. So the Savoy has ended up being a great place to get to go. I do like to play golf. I'm not any good at it, but any chance that I get to go play golf, if I have the time, which is the problem, it's such a time-intensive sport, but I love to play golf.
Where do you play if you got the chance? If I said we're going golfing right now, where would we go?
Yeah, so ideally Cartersville Country Club,
sure,
or Barnsley. Incredible courses right here in our backyard.
I've never played either of those.
Yeah, you need to. So that, and just I wish I had something fancy and elaborate. Don't own a boat. Growing up, I lived next door to a guy named Russell Archer, and he had a houseboat. and a bass boat.
Ooh.
And he was a master fisherman. He'd go up on Allatoona, and he taught me how to fish. And I got to go up on Allatoona a lot with Russell and Denise Archer, and I always appreciated that experience. But I don't have a boat myself, so I need to get my kids out there and let them experience what that's like.
Sure. Savoy is also a great spot. I actually just yesterday recorded a podcast with McCrae Adair, the woman who's, I guess, does all the operations over there, and she's just amazing. And she gave me that cup there that's on the corner of that shelf there. And yeah, just a great spot.
It is.
Love it. She told me, I texted my dad immediately after, because she told me that this summer they're doing a NASCAR exhibit where they're going to have 2 cars from every generation of NASCAR cars. And she was like, we can't wait because we know we're going to be packed for that. I was like, I'm calling my dad immediately after this. But yeah, Savoy is fantastic. And yeah, those are all good answers. I mean, I'm also not good at golf. I'm the comic relief friend out of the foursome. I go to have a drink or two, maybe a cigar, and just to be with the buddies. That's why I like it. But yeah, no good. So if you ever need somebody to be with you that's not good, also give me a shout, and I'll come hang. 2 more, Matthew. What is something that people would be very surprised to find out about you?
Well, being in public service requires you to be at a lot of events and in a lot of crowds and, shaking hands and doing all that kind of stuff, which is just a part of it. But there is such a thing as being extroverted introvert. And I would definitely say that's me. I have to recharge. You were talking about recharging a minute ago. So I do have to, in between those types of events, kind of take a breath and go clear my head. And psych up for the next one. Because it sometimes it takes a lot.
Sure.
And it'll drain you.
Yeah, it sure will. And then lastly, Matthew, what keeps you going? What gets you out of bed every morning? What pushes you? What is your morning drive?
Well, during the year, the morning drive looks differently all year long, because during the session, it's down to the Capitol every day. And outside of that, it could be going over to Alpharetta, to our office in Alpharetta, or going to meet with folks, for pursuits or whatever it might be. So, that looks a lot differently every day. But faith is a huge part of my life, and leaning on that, turning to God and trying to read my Bible, trying to focus on the fact that God's given me an opportunity to help people and to serve. It's not about me. I have a borrowed title, and there's a time and a season in all of our lives where we're doing things, but those things will come to an end. And so I realize that right now I'm in this role and I have to make the most of it, but there'll come a day where someone else comes and does this. And so I pray every day, God, help me to do a good job. Help me to represent this community with respect like it deserves, that people would be proud of. And, the other thing I'll say for folks that would be listening today is that I'm accessible. I'm on social media, my email, my cell phone. I mean, it's everywhere. If there are things that I can help you with, especially state things, and I'm glad to talk about federal problems and even local issues, but if it is a state issue, I'm in the state legislature, it's state government. I can help you with that. So don't spin your wheels with a state issue that's driving you crazy. Reach out to me and let me see if I can help. And if it's some other issue, I can try to get you channeled to the right way. But public service is important to me, and I just try to do a good job.
Well, you kind of teetered on it just then, so I'll go ahead and let you plug whatever you want to plug. But I mean, how can people support? I mean, what if there's anything that you want to promote or plug, you can go ahead and do it now, whether it's the work
I'm running for re-election this year. I qualified in March, and I'm on the ballot in May. I'm uncontested, but I do have a general election opponent. And my campaign website is www.votegamble.com. I am on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I told the kids, I'm like, oh God, I just can't handle another social media. So you can look me up on there and find my contact information, especially on the website. You can find out a little bit about my platform and some of the things I focused on or you can just call me and I'll talk to you. A lot of people are like, they'll call me and they'll say, I want to meet with you and your chief of staff. And I'm like, listen, folks, this is not real glamorous. It's me and a laptop. We'll meet at the coffee shop. They're thinking Washington and all this stuff they see
Sure.
at the national level. It's a totally different thing here at the state level.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure I plug the Vote Gamble here in the in the description so that we can people can tune in and check it out and learn more about you and what this kind of platform you have and all those things. Thank you, dude, so much for coming
Logan,
and hanging out with me.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to get to know you better and appreciate what you're doing in our community to help share stories for a lot of folks that would otherwise not have that chance.
Yeah, that's nice of you, man. I think it's just really cool. Whether you say it's not as glamorous as Washington or at a national level or not, it's still really cool that I get to sit and hang out with someone that's representing the district and the area that I live in, and it's just really cool.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Guys, again, Matthew's website, and maybe I'll throw couple of his social media handles there in the description so you can follow him along and stay up to date with everything he's got going on and all that thing and all those things. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're new here, thank you for sticking around and hanging out with us. And we'll see everybody next time. Take care.